Shepa, welcome all, bienvenidos. Welcome all, and we are very happy to have you here on our first edition of the new international webinar led and organized and hosted by the Youth for Environment Education and Development Foundation, Nepal. So our topic and the title of this webinar is Super Youth Dialogue, Achieving Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, in the New Normal, organized to commemorate today, the World Youth Skills Day. So this webinar plans to run around for 1 hour and 30 minutes. I welcome Ms. Nguyen Rai, the program intern of the Youth for Environment Education and Development Foundation, for the opening and welcoming remarks.
Hello and namaste. I am Nguyen Rai, and it is a great pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this webinar on behalf of YFEED Foundation. Established on 2018, Youth for Education is a non-profit organization that has been continuously working in the field of inclusive education, human rights, sustainable development goals, and environmental conservation. We are purposely uplifting and empowering youth, women, children, and especially indigenous community as primary stakeholders in society building. We are celebrating this auspicious occasion of World Youth Skills Day by addressing and emerging an important topic in today's world, achieving SDGs in the new normal. This webinar, we have a group of 4 inspiring, passionate, and talented speakers with us today. Our first speaker is Mr. Axell Cooper Sutton Antonio. Mr. Antonio is the Executive Vice President at Latin American Youth Energy Circle, Mexico. Our second speaker is Ms. Fatou Jeng. She is the founder and director at Clean Earth Gambia, Africa. Our third speaker is Ms. Heeta Lakhani, a Global Focal Point 2020 YOUNGO. She is also the former Youth and Children's Constituency to the UNFCCC, India. Our fourth and last speaker is Ms. Nisreen Elsaim. She is the chairperson of Sudan Youth Organization on Climate Change. After our speakers are done, we will move on to an interactive Q&A sessions where the participants can put forward their queries. For the synthesis, vote of thanks and closing remarks, Mr. Joshua Amphusen will be taking the charge. He is the Executive Director of Green Africa Youth Organization. Our organization, YFEED, will be bringing much more exciting programs like this in the future, so please do follow our Facebook page. Lastly, I would once again like to express my hearty welcome to all our guest speakers and our participants on behalf of YFEED Foundation family, hoping that you find and respect the skills within you and embrace the energy to inspire others. We wish you a happy World Youth Skills Day 2020. Now on to you, Ms. Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that amazing welcome word. So before we continue, I might ask you to please turn on your camera because we want to take a group screenshot. So please go ahead, and our lecturers as well and participants are very welcome to open your cameras. Come on, guys, today's a good day to celebrate, but also to understand the challenges. So before we continue, we want to capture our participants and lecturers and speakers from around the world. So, I'm gonna take several screenshots. Okay, guys, ready? Let's do this. Again, other. Okay, and one more time. I think we got it. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, so now we're going to start the session 1. As it was mentioned, we're going to have different sessions. So this session 1 is a panel discussion with our lecturers and amazing young leaders from around the world. So I just remind you guys, 10 minutes maximum for each of you. So first of all, I want to welcome Ms. Fatou Jeng, founder and director of Clean Earth Gambia. So Fatou, it's difficult to mention just main things on her bio because she has done so much amazing things. She has over 4 years of experience in climate change and environmental development work. Her bachelor's degree is in journalism and digital media at the University of Gambia. And she's the founder of Clean Earth Gambia, an environmental NGO working mainly on climate-related issues. So please go ahead, Fatou, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, everyone. I am very much pleased to be here in this very interesting discussion commemorating World Youth Skill Day. And I want to thank the organizers and the co-hosts for making this possible. And I am very much pleased to be here. So we can definitely kick off.
Fatou, you can go ahead. Don't worry, yes.
Okay, I thought you were going to ask me questions and I actually answered the questions
in that way.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my discussion is going to be centered around youth involvement in climate change issues because that is my main area of focus, or that is what exactly my organization or my background has been. And as Joyce mentioned, I've had over 4 years experience working on grassroots work from the local and national and international level, advocating for issues that has to do with climate action. And I've based on my engagement and work, I've been seeing how our work has been yielding positive, especially with the young people, and how now people in the Gambia are now starting to know issues about climate change and how they can basically get more engaged. So we understand the youth engagement is basically very fundamental in climate action. And through our engagement, that is using awareness creation methods, using research, training, and using also technology, we have been able to develop skills and getting more local. We've been getting more vocal to basically speak about climate change issues and critically being able to assess and address issues that have to do with climate change and the challenges that we face across all levels as far as issues concerning our environment is basically concerned. So it is very crucial to also acknowledge youth as powerful groups of society, and as such, our engagement is very, very necessary across all levels to make sure that that is from all levels across our various demographics for bold actions against climate change. Or so just bringing it back or down to our local level in the Gambia. Clean Earth Gambia, because I am I'm the founder of Clean Earth Gambia, and also the Global Secretary General for Plan for the Planet, which is an international organization that is working towards climate action through tree planting exercises. So based on my engagement at local level, we have been able to train over 500 school students in the Gambia about issues that has to do with climate change and environmental action, and how they can be able to get more engaged to take part in issues and activities that will be able to create more awareness about environmental related issues and also engage policymakers. Because in the Gambia, it is very sad that we have not really have any in our school curriculum, we don't have issues that have to do with the environment or climate change. So which makes it very difficult for young people as the generation that is going to be most affected by climate change to know more issues about climate change, how they can engage in more sustainable practices towards climate mitigation and adaptation processes. So my organization, we deem it necessary to, as they say, catch them young. We decided to catch the young people young so that at a very young age, they will know more issues about climate change and how they can get more engaged. So as I mentioned, we've been able to train 500 students from the elementary level, including their teachers, that is about 20 teachers, because they usually come with chaperone. And these are usually day-long capacity building trainings where we take them across different models that has to do with climate change and things that they have to know, among others. And then we also plant trees. So through our engagements over the past 4 years, we've been able to plant several trees in our communities, and including the Banjul beach, because experts have mentioned that the Gambia, if the sea is inundated by just 1 meter sea level rise, if it is inundated by 1 meter sea level rise, the city will be flooded, that is Banjul. And that means people are going to lose their lives and their livelihoods, among others. So it has been recommended that we plant coconut and baobab trees, which can be able to at least help halt erosion. So this has been activities that we've been engaging We've also been able to train various youth organizations and how they can also get more engaged and also include climate action in their work, because Clean Out Gambia cannot do it alone, and other environmental NGOs cannot do it alone. So the more we train young people and youth NGOs to also try to get more engaged about issues concerning environmental issues, then the more we can be able to make sure that at least there is better partnership to make sure that, you know, the work that we're doing and the education that we're trying to create reach across all levels, because going across the whole country to try to train people will be difficult for us to do alone. So, but the more we train youth organizations, the more that they get to know about it, the more the work will be easier for us as young people. We've also been working with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, because just recently we commemorated World Environment Day 2020 Clean Out Gambia, and we had a dialogue, a virtual dialogue, engaging the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the British High Commissioner in the Gambia, which is actually the COP26 host, where we discuss what the ministry is doing and how they're engaging young people and how they're working with young people to make sure that the work that they're doing reach across all levels, reach across the community, and young people can get more engaged in decision-making processes as far as issues concerning climate change is concerned. So these are just a few of the things that we've been doing across national level, but at international level, you know, we have been, in my individual capacity, we've been supporting policy-related processes, especially with the Women and Gender Working Group, where we've written several policy documents to make sure that, you know, issues concerning gender and climate change are concerned, because we understand that young people, women and girls are basically the most vulnerable as far as issues concerning the damages or the threats of environmental or climate change is basically concerned. So just to move further, because I think I have 10 minutes and I talk a lot. So if you just allow me, I'll just keep on talking. But I'll try as much as possible to summarize it. So how I basically feel young people can work together, because we are commemorating World Youth Skills Day. That is how we can bring together our different skills, our different expertise, and our different areas of interest to be able to make sure that we work together to make sure that the goal that we want as far as SDG 13 is concerned is basically forged. So first of all, I think what we need to do as young people is to try as much as possible to promoting more dialogue among us as young people in order for us to share best practices. So this is a typical example of it. We are sitting together, having young people from across the continent, across the globe, discussing our different work, what we're doing across our different levels. So this is one way that we can be doing, having more discussions, share best practices, share what we have been doing, which we can be able to take back to our own countries and see how best we can be able to implement it. So this is one thing that I definitely like, having more dialogues among young people, because the more we have more dialogue, the more we try to have more understanding about pressing challenges that we face in our different continents, and the more that we can be able to share our recommendations as well as best practices, as I mentioned, to be able to make sure that the fight that we're trying to do as far as climate action is concerned is being able to effectively, or we are able to effectively address it. In addition, I think we need to build more synergies and partnership among us as young people. So that alone, that also is something that I've also been seeing, because we mentioned it's a super 30 youth dialogue, and this is 30 young people from different backgrounds, from different ways of life, from different organizations, and we are building our synergies. We are building a partnership. For example, this is an event that we organize in partnership with different organizations. So building our synergies and building partnership, I believe, is one of the ways forward, because even that is part of the SDGs. That is SDG 17 has to do with partnership. So the more partnership we have, I mentioned, the more we can be able to make sure that we effectively and collectively work together as young people. Because as I mentioned, the more we bring our skills together, the more we bring our different areas of interest and our different expertise, the more we can be able to make sure that there is collective action towards climate action, towards climate change. And at this point, as they mentioned, this is the decade of action. And with the decade of action, what we need rapid and swift development. We need rapid and swift growth as far as what we're trying to work on, or what we're trying to advocate for is basically concerned. So I'll pause here. If they have any question, I'll basically take it, but I'd love to continue with the discussion.
Wow. I was like, okay, writing and understanding, and it's just amazing how you talk a lot about collective intelligence, and this is actually one of the part of the main topics today as well, into the climate action. So next, our next speaker, we will be back to you with some questions, is Mr. Axell Cooper Sutton Antonio. He is the Executive Vice Director of the Latin American Youth Energy Circle, and he's an energy engineer working in the SDG 7 since 2015, also actual Vice President of the Latin American Student Energy Summit 2021, and founder of Climate Influencers, a climate communication strategy for the planet. So Axell, please tell us more about you and tell us more about SDG 7 in this new normal. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Axell. Today I will talk around the SDG number 7, affordable energy, affordable and clean energy for all in the new normality. First, thanks to JIT Foundation for the invitation as a speaker, and thanks Anish for all your effort on this. So I will pass to share my screen if you don't care. I prepare. Okay, I'm disabled for screen sharing. I don't know if I can share or if I can just talk. Okay. Well, as we know, the transformation of the energy system over the past decade, although slower than required to shift the objective of the Paris Agreement to combat climate change, has been unprecedented, but this and momentum now is being lost as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic continues to cause economic and social damage. Beyond this uncertainty over its long-term consequences, COVID has unleashed cascading effects in real time. First, we have the erosion of almost a third of the global energy demand, the unprecedented oil price volatilities and subsequent geopolitical implications, the delayed investments on different projects around the world, the uncertainties over the employment prospects of millions of energy sectors workers. I think the crisis has forced the unthinkable. Society has caused to relinquish valuable commodities and freedoms to collectively address the global outbreak and effort of similar proportion that we are requiring to this energy transition. So the huge disruption caused by this coronavirus crisis has highlighted how much modern societies rely on electricity. Millions of people are now confined to their homes, resorting to teleworking to do their jobs, e-commerce sites to do their shopping, and streaming video platforms to find entertainment. So a reliable electricity supply underpins all these services, as well as powering the devices most of us take for granted, such as fridge, washing machines, and light bulbs. In many countries, electricity is critical for operating the ventilators and other medical equipment in the hospitals, treating the soaring numbers of sick people in such unsettling and rapidly evolving situation. Electricity also ensures the timely communication of important information between governments and citizens, and between doctors and patients. So these services shouldn't be taken for granted. For example, in Africa, hundreds of millions of people live without any access to electricity, making them far more vulnerable to this danger. So how we can design the SDG 7 in the new normality? I believe in three pathways. The first ones is around include the energy transition in a stimulus package, calling for clean energy technologies to be at the heart of the economic stimulus package with comprehensive investments in the development, deployment, and integration of clean technologies. This could stimulate economies by creating new jobs or boosting economic activity while at the same time advancing the energy transition. Such technologies include solar and wind power generation, the conversion of renewables into clean hydrogen and e-fuels, the battery storage and carbon capture, and the utilization of different ways to storage the energy. So the progress this will achieve is transforming countries, and energy infrastructure won't be temporary. I think it's gonna make it lasting difference to our future if we can invest right now in clean technology. So the second fact that I really believe is around playing field for investments in renewables. One possible incentive to make investments in renewables more attractive is to reduce subsidies around oil. This option has become a real possibility, especially now that the demand prices for fossil fuels have plummeted with the COVID-19 pandemic following hard on the heels of the Russo-Saudi price war. Removing fossil fuel subsidies or pricing carbon along with loans with guarantees provided in the stimulus package can help reduce many of the risks that had previously deteriorated private money. So green energy will grow, and wind and solar farms are attracting interest right now from investors who hungry for low risk, stable yield opportunities at the time of extraordinary market volatility. So moreover, the cost of solar and wind power technologies are continuing to fall, and newer technologies that will never be necessary for the energy transition are now ready to be scaled up. So we're ready create flexible grids. We're ready to create flexible grids with a firm capacity of available electricity. We're already getting a glimpse of how future electricity markets may look. Due to the confinement measures taken around the world, there has been around 50% decline in electricity demand in most advanced economies, with a normal weekday consumption pattern to resembling more than a typical Sunday profile. This is making the ability of renewables suddenly much higher in markets that already have a large share of renewable installed capacity in the grid, giving them access to larger levels of variable wind and solar power. At the same time, the lockdown spanning most of the planet has underlined how much we all depend on the secure supply of electricity. Without it, home confined or for many will be unacceptable. This is an important moment for understanding of our clean electric systems, including some of the operational challenges that policymakers and regulators need to address to ensure electricity security. With investments in clean energy technology, we may one day move to a hydrogen economy, and the electricity we receive from our renewables will no longer be dependent on the weather. Until then, systems need to be flexible enough to shift to other sources of generation in times of a little or no sun or no wind, and maintain a firm capacity of electricity guaranteed available at any given time. So how we can advance in the time of COVID crisis could become a disruptive triggering event that results in fundamental change towards more sustainable energy future. If countries embrace the weak demand for fossil fuels and the other positive lesson for the pandemic as an opportunity to dramatically expand sustainable energy solutions, such action will allow them to build back better and stronger, will also advance on the SDGs and put the world on a 1.5 Celsius rates pathway. In order to reach out that outcome, governments should consider the following interrelated actions, like integrate sustainable energy solutions into COVID responses, like use the NDCs as a framework for green investments through economic recovery package, um, prioritize modern energy services that save life, invest in renewables energy and efficiency to create green jobs. Another different path is support vulnerable groups to leave no one behind and promote a more gender equal response and recovery. The encourage of a transition for energy intensive lifestyles to more sustainable patterns is very important to work in this path. And, and 70% of the young people consider the speed of the energy transitions to be either stagnant or too slow, according to a World Economic Forum survey of the Global Shapers Committee. So they are also more willing to pay for the increased costs associated with energy transition and are more accepting of lifestyle change required for energy transition. So how youth can improve on this goal? I was making some research around of how I can start to do my thing like an individual, like my more personal, and I found something around the Good Life Goals. That is a One Planet Network initiative that they designed for us. These Good Life Goals highlight the vital role of individual actions in achieving the SDGs, and they designed like 5 steps for use more clean energy. One of these is find out where your energy comes from. I think it's very important to know where the energy from your house comes, and you can understand more around what is the difference from clean energy in either carbon energy. The second step is, like save energy wherever you can. It's something that really need to start to do in our houses, in our households. The step 3 is use renewable energy for heat, for light and power. It's something like, like the sun is over us all the time, so we can use this energy to heat and light the different parts of our house. The fourth step is buy from companies powered by renewable energy. In the case of Mexico, it's something difficult right now to buy energy to different enterprises, because we only have one enterprises that is like providing energy for all the citizens. But I think in other countries we can start with that. And in the 5th step, we have to demand clean and affordable energy for everyone, because if we are not demanding this service and this commodity around energy, the governments and the politicians will not know how we can do this path, and how we can start in energy transitions right now. So this is the end of my participation. Thank you so much for the time and your attention.
Thank you, Axel. Very interesting, and not just interesting, but needed, as you were talking a lot regarding the energy security and in the new normal. So continuing with our debate, I welcome Ms. Heeta Lakhani. Ms. Heeta, she has a master's degree in environmental studies and resource management. She's the focal point of the Global South for the Youth Constituency of the UNFCCC. Last year, she was instrumental in forming the official Youth Caucus of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification, and also was part of organizing the Youth Forum at the it's complex. UNCCD COP14 in New Delhi. Wow, sorry. So please, Heeta, take the floor.
Thank you, Joyce. It's a pleasure to be here, and also thank you to Anish and the entire team at YFED for hosting this webinar and for inviting all of us. It's definitely, it's an immense pleasure to be talking to all of you after knowing you for so many months in a totally different role. So yeah. Well, I think what I want to talk about is mainly why, of course, young people are important. We've all been talking about youth and the power of youth, and especially over the past year or two, we've been seeing more and more youth getting involved in climate change and environmental issues, especially because of the Fridays for Future and the school strikes that picked up a couple of years ago. Definitely more and more young people, and this is also now, it's not just a topic which is only been spoken about by a section of society, but I think globally this is definitely picking up pace, and even governments are understanding that youth are important and necessary to be spoken about, at least spoken to when you talk about international climate negotiations. However, do we actually see that on the ground is something I think which I leave each of us to answer. When we work with our national governments on the ground, it's very different. And it's quite similar also in India, where we have internationally, of course, India is talking a lot about having a lot of solar power and extremely ambitious, NDCs. But we don't see that happening on the ground back at home. In fact, currently we've seen a lot of environmental clearances going on within the country. A lot of our entire draft of the environmental impact assessment, basically our policy which can ensure that when can a company or an industry get a clearance is being diluted completely to favor the corporates. So we're definitely seeing something which has been unprecedented in the past few years out in the open. We're seeing youth voices being silenced within the country. But at the same time, we're seeing that the voices of young people are getting stronger and stronger, whether this is in India or whether this is in other parts of the world. youth are definitely, taking the stage, taking the lead, and ensuring that young people are, speaking about it, are campaigning, whether it's digital, whether it's in person. There are campaigns going across the world where youth are taking the lead, ensuring that, climate action is not kept back until we wait for COVID-19 to be tackled, because clearly climate change is not going to wait for the COVID crisis to go away. And we have to realize that what we've seen during the COVID-19 crisis is a complete exposure of a broken system, a broken healthcare system, broken system of governance amongst countries. And this is a global situation. It's not just pointing fingers at one or two countries in the world, where everyone has suffered and still is suffering the impacts of the COVID crisis. And this is what we see, and what we're going to face with the climate crisis in the years to come is going to be a lot more amplified, and is going to be 100 times worse than what we're witnessing today. And we definitely don't want to go ahead and hit the climate crisis in full force, because we're not prepared for that. We do not have enough action locally, we do not have enough action internationally, and we do not have the resources to fight the climate crisis. And what we need to do now is use this time that the COVID-19 crisis has given us. We need to realize that this pause button that was hit on all our economies for a few months was for the best. A lot of people, yes, have suffered. Even in India, millions of people have suffered because of the economic crisis and still are suffering the impacts. But what we need to realize is, as we recover, we have to recover in a green, in a climate friendly and environment friendly way. We cannot, and there is no way we can go back to the old normal again. There is not going to be a world where we can continue polluting, we can continue destroying the environment for human development. That it is impossible to go back to that world. We have to ensure that as we develop, jobs are greener, economy is greener. And when we look at the economy in general, usually when you start studying economics as a basic, and I'm not an economist, I've only studied basic economics back in college. But usually when you talk about environmental issues, it's usually termed as an externality. And we need to realize that this is not an externality. Our development, our well-being depends on the environment directly. And so we need to rethink economics, we need to rethink markets, and we need to rethink how countries have been functioning and global economy has been functioning. We definitely need to realize that young people are taking the lead, and that this transition to a green economy will only happen with young people at the forefront of it. When you give youth their due importance, and you consult with youth across the world and ensure, because this is a climate crisis that is affecting futures of young people, and young people are the first who are going to be facing these impacts, who are going to be witnessing and their lives are going to be impacted by the decisions taken today. So youth today have to be involved in the decisions of the future. Our future is not negotiable, cannot be spoken about for hours and hours and hours without any conclusion, like a lot of international negotiations lead to. We need to see international cooperation. We need to see global standards on more climate ambition going up day by day. And we need to ensure that this is done in consultation with all sectors of society, youth included. And when we talk about young people, youth itself is so cross-cutting. There are youth from indigenous backgrounds. There are youth who are, even within a country, there is an urban, youth and a rural youth, and both of them have extremely different access to opportunities, extremely different access to education, to resources. And somehow it is always the most vulnerable and the people who've contributed the least to the climate crisis who are impacted most by the impacts of the climate crisis. And this is when we talk about climate justice and intergenerational equity, where young people are facing the brunt of the climate crisis, are facing the impacts of the climate crisis, and will continue to do so, despite them having contributed to the crisis least. And when we look at this also, when we speak about difference in access of resources between young people, young women and girls who are, at the forefront of facing the impacts of the climate crisis, and amongst youth who are the vulnerable category, we need to realize that we need to look at the bigger picture. We need to look at things holistically, and we need to ensure that this is a recovery that is done better together. And the together bit is extremely important. We cannot be thinking of individual countries, individual people, individual societies recovering, because, you know, as we see, we're in a global world, and the crisis, especially the climate crisis, does not see any borders. And we have to realize this, that we're all in this boat together, and we either sink together or we stay afloat together. So I think I'm going to end on that note and leave it up to my colleagues. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Heeta, for your remarks. Yeah, actually, it's really worrying, as you point out. The COVID crisis is very small in comparison to the climate crisis that we are facing. Okay, well, I welcome also our next speaker. She's Ms. Nisreen Elsaim. She's an environmental and climate activist with a bachelor's degree in physics from the University of Khartoum in Sudan. She pursued her master's degree in renewable energies in the same university, and she's the general coordinator for Youth and Environment Sudan, a platform to give all environment working youth the networking they need. So I welcome you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Joy. I'm very glad and joyful to be here with you. Welcome all of our listeners and participations. I'm going to speak today about one of the main reasons why we had this webinar in the first place, which is the special day of World Youth Skills Day. So I'm going to give some advices to other young people in how to boost their skills and upgrade their abilities in order to reach what they want to reach. One of the most important part of my talk will be how to overcome the challenges. So first of all, I want to say that challenges is only in our minds. For example, here in Sudan, a lot of young people have many excuses for not scaling up their abilities and not upgrading their skills and so on. For example, one of the excuses is the electricity. We have a sharp energy crisis these days, so we need to spend 9 to 7 hours without electricity. It's one day going to be in the night and one day it's going to be on the daytime. One of the main skills to overcome the electricity power off or electricity cut is to actually organize your time. For example, if you know that you will be out of energy or electricity on the night, then you need to charge all of your phones, your laptops, everything. And because there is nothing else to do, nothing to make you disturb, it's quite nice time to do a lot of work when there is no light actually. So it's only you, your laptop, or only you and the work you are doing. The other thing important is also to have a priority list. Priority list is very key issue in order to achieve your goals. So for example, if your priority this day is to read a book, then you need to finish your priority when you have an actual nature light, which is the sun. And you can also do it when there's no electricity in the morning, so you can read a book. You can do some house gardening, which is the very important thing, to do some house gardening. A lot of countries, for example, Sudan, has a lot of spaces in their houses, and they can actually grow a lot of crops. And it's very easy. We have a big groups in WhatsApp and in Facebook in order to help people to do house gardening. You will help your family by providing some of the basic vegetables and fruits. Also, you will help your country income by not only being a consumption but also a producer for something. Also, you will help the economic crisis then and support the transitional period. The second thing I want to talk about is how to actually mobilize others also to do the same. One of the major issues that faces youth of Sudan, for example, is the American sanctions. We can't use Zoom in Sudan unless we use VPN or any other applications that actually tells the provider of the Zoom that we are in a different country, which is like it makes people struggle, especially if we have a lot of webinars and Zooms and other things during the COVID-19, because we can't actually have physical meetings. We also can't access a lot of paid courses because we can't use Visa cards here in Sudan also. But all of these problems has actually solutions, and by time we learned how to overcome these hurdles and how to adapt to our situation. So we asked one of our relatives or friends outside Sudan to pay for us, and then we can use the course here in Sudan. Me, myself, I helped when I was outside the country. I helped many young people to actually pay for their courses, because whenever you are out Sudan, then things are more flexible. Even the Zoom and the other softwares like Windows and the iTunes and the iPlay and everything is the Apple Store. We can't use it here, but there is also solutions for all of this. Last but not least, there is actually nothing can stop you from doing whatever you want to do and achieving your dreams. The only thing can stop you is actually you. So I really want to say to young people of Sudan and other countries that even to adapt to climate change, boosting your skills and scaling up your professionals is very highly recommended, because we will need sooner or later to find other ways of living. And this will not only be about our electricity or about our food, but our entire lifestyle. And this will happen sooner or later. So it's better for us to be prepared for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nisreen. Yes, actually, it is very interesting, but also important, the remarks you did regarding the celebration of today is the day, the World Youth Skills. And as you said, it's part of the reason why we decided to organize and you also to join this amazing group of young people. So we are moving now to our session 2, which is the question and answer session. So right now we got some questions, but also I want to say again to the participants, go ahead. If you have questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can also go ahead and open your mic and your camera. So then I will read some of the questions and I will expect the answer from the panelists. And then we will go with some final comments by the panelists. So we have a question from McDonald from Zimbabwe. And it is, how do we ensure that we promote the no leave, no one behind ethos in implementing the SDGs? Given that the COVID-19, we have been challenged to connect more through virtual platforms. This means more challenges for those in rural and remote areas to access information and engage more meaningful in driving the achievement of the SDGs. How can we close actually this gap? So I don't know, Nisreen, if you want to start, or please, our panelists, feel free to answer this question.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity again, Joy. So I think one of them, I think leaving no one behind is more visionary target, because if you compared a lot of countries by others and a lot of young people by others, many people were already left behind. So I think the only intervention we can do now is how to help and how to support these people, these nations, these young people who were left behind actually, in order to reach where other nations and countries and young people are. And that's why we also try to mentor other young people around us. and we try to reach policymakers in order to focus on the youth policies, and also to focus on youth centers, for example, training centers. We also try to take the young people of our countries to the international level. So if you know that, for example, English language is, although UN has 7 UN formal language, but English is the main communication language in the world now. So our mother tongue is Arabic. So we try to teach a lot of young people English in order to be able to communicate with the outsider world. Other people are trying, like Joy, for example, are trying to learn Arabic actually. This is, I think, very enriching in order to protect the variability of the countries, or also the cultural variability, and the culture, break also the cultural barriers, and exchanging knowledge is very important. So if someone from Brazil have an experience that can be useful in Sudan, then he or she is most welcome. If someone in Moldova, for example, or in Latvia, or in Nepal, or in Sri Lanka, or in China, or in other countries have any experiences that you feel that you need to share with the world and it will be useful, then please share it, because we can't know everything, but all together we can achieve something very great.
Thank you very much, Nisreen. I'll just take over from her, moderator, if you may kindly permit. Yes, so just to continue from where she stopped, Mohammed asked a very important question as far as the pandemic COVID-19 is concerned and how it has affected our climate action activities, because he mentioned a very crucial point, that is access to information is really very, very, very crucial and is very important, which is now a major problem, because connecting virtually is a problem because of now the situation and how everything has basically turned up. So personally, I feel we all understand that, for example, Africa and global south countries are mostly affected when it comes to access to information, and also getting connected to the internet, or getting connected virtually to be engaged in this kind of discussions. And as Nisreen mentioned, the issue of leaving no one behind is to make sure that we close the gap in terms of opportunities, in terms of access to information, in terms of anything that has to do with the progress of countries that are really actually being left behind as far as development and the attainment of the sustainable development goals of this is concerned. So just to take it over, I think not having the internet is basically a problem, but I don't think that is the only way we can be able to get engaged as far as climate change is concerned. Though I understand that it's a major problem, because when you don't have access to information, then it becomes very difficult for you to know what is actually happening around the globe and how you can get to further develop your knowledge as far as what you can do at local level is concerned. However, I feel we can get more engaged at community level at this point, because we understand that now is the time for us to see how best we can change how we have been operating or how we have been engaging in activities as far as climate change is concerned. And now talking about the issue of the leaving the no one behind, I think even if you don't have access to information at this point, especially virtually, I think what we can do now is to try to get more engaged at community level, try to see how best information can reach more of our community, because we understand that these are people that don't really have access to this kind of information. So if we use our different organizations, if we use our respective institutions to try to reach out more to our communities, bring to them the information that they basically need as far as what they can do and what they need to know about issues concerning the environment is concerned, I think that would be a very good way we can start from that. Even though I understand, or I have to accept or agree with you, with Mohammed, that internet is definitely a very, very, very major problem, and this is going to break the gap as far as leaving no one behind is basically concerned, and its effective realization.
That's perfect. Thank you for your answer. I'm wondering, Axell, Mr. Axell and Ms. Heeta, if you want to also answer this question, please.
Yes, hi. I think Fatou and Nisreen provided some really good points and some food for thought. And definitely, like, access to internet is something that we've realized, especially now that internet during the COVID-19 pandemic, that internet is something that is a necessity now. It's not a choice for the privileged. It's not something that can be, optional. But now, with the way the people are needed to work from home and everything has moved online, especially engagement, and this means that a lot of young people are unable to engage if they do not have access to internet. And of late, actually, I faced it firsthand because I've recently moved cities, and because now I'm not within a, how do you say, urban city limit. The internet, I mean, the electricity connection goes on and off anytime in the day, and that's when I lose out on internet. And so I realized what Nisreen is saying. It's definitely much worse than what I've been facing it here. But I can empathize with youth who do not have continuous and free supply to electricity like I did a few months ago. So I think it's extremely important, which is why we need to realize that, when we talk about crisis and when we talk about global crisis and global pandemics, it is extremely important to think about ensuring that, we think about the least and the most vulnerable people who are, whose voices are heard the least a lot of the times. And we need to ensure that we take them on board when we consider a recovery, when we consider coming back out of COVID, when we consider fighting the climate crisis. The voices of the most vulnerable have to be taken into account, because those are the ones that are actually at the forefront and the ones who are actually facing problems and issues, whether it's a global pandemic, whether it's a climate crisis, or whether it's an economic crisis. They're definitely facing the issues, and we need to ensure that we have consultations, we have an inclusive approach, and that we need to ensure that youth have an access to reach their governments, which a lot of times is not possible, including for me. So it's very difficult to reach, whether it's your local government, whether it's your national government, or whether it's internationally. So we need to ensure that these dialogues between governments, between civics and governments and civil society is built in such a way that civil society, especially young people, have the chance to ensure that their voices are incorporated in the decision-making processes. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your answer. I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead, please, Axell.
Okay, right now to answer the question from McDonald, I think leadership plays a really important role to close this gap. People who is more prepared maybe will be the one to extend this type of information and engagement more meaningfully in driving the achievement of the SDGs in rural areas. I think people who is prepared to extend the information maybe will be great on this type of remote areas to access information. I think it's very difficult to to achieve this on this type of areas, but right now is only that is the only thing that I can share with McDonald. Thank you.
Thank you, Axell. And well, I actually have a question, but if we don't have further questions, please, if you do have, go ahead in the chat and ask it. But also, as we are approaching as well our time to close this session number 2, I will ask a question, but I also will ask for your final comments of all our panelists. And basically, yes, because I was listening to you all, and so actually what does youth involvement in climate action mean to you as a young person? I know most of you already tackled this question, but into a more concrete, or into a sentence, or in a synthesis, how would you answer this question, guys? So yeah, what does youth involvement in climate action means to you as a young person, and how we can also keep the youth engaged towards the climate action? Thank you. So I don't know if someone wants to start. I don't know, maybe Fatou. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
I think in my deliberation, I mentioned what youth action really means to me in terms of climate. Youth engagement or involvement in climate action basically means to me. I think we all understand that young people play a very, very fundamental and crucial role as far as climate action is concerned, both at our national, international, and grassroots level, because we are the ones that are championing initiatives in our communities, and also making sure that we use our skills and our experience and our expertise to be able to make sure that there is more awareness about issues concerning the environment and climate in our communities. So what it really means to me, I personally feel that young people, as far as us being in the front line is concerned, we have been doing a very remarkable work in terms of making sure that communities and our people are really aware about issues that have to do with the climate, and then how they can be able to get more engaged as far as environmental sustainability is concerned. So what I just actually urge us young people to continue to do is to get more engaged, because the advocacy is a continuous journey. It's a continuous work. It's a continuous activity, and we need to keep on doing it. We need to continue mentoring young people. We need to make sure that the information that we're trying to make sure we impart reaches the people that need to know about it, especially the younger generation. Because as young people, I feel even though we contribute, we are one of the least contributors to climate change. We play a very, very, very crucial and pivotal role as far as making sure that the generation unborn actually also know about it, and also make sure that the mistakes that are older than the older generation have done doesn't also make sure that it's something that they face. So as young people, I feel our involvement in climate action is definitely a very, very critical, crucial, and also a powerful force. And I think what we're doing is something that has been recognized, and I think we need to keep on doing more of what we're doing, because our involvement has definitely yielded positive results, and we need to get more engaged to make sure that there is more positive results across all levels.
Thank you for your answer. So Heeta, Nisreen, or Axell, please go ahead if you want.
Hi. Yeah, I think just following up from what Fatou said, I think she hit the nail on the head when young people are championing action at the local level within their communities. I think it's extremely important first for us to realize and acknowledge that the climate crisis is, it's happening much faster than what we had ever anticipated, what scientists had thought about, and I think we need to educate youth across the world, and especially talk to young people who talk to students, etc., and educate them about the climate crisis. I think the solutions are plentyfold, and I think every young person can take his or her pick in what he or she would like to do. For me, it was educating other young people, educating school kids on climate change, because as I started attending international conferences, I realized that the knowledge on climate change and environment in general is really, really low, especially in our curriculum back at home in India. And I wanted to bridge the gap, because I realized, saying that, youth from my country are going to be facing the impacts of the climate crisis, but they're not even aware of this crisis that it's looming. They're not aware of anything that's happening internationally, especially these, big agreements that we talk about, like the Paris Agreement or the negotiations, which in turn have an impact on their own lives. And for the next years to come. So what I started doing is I started educating youth on climate change, and trying to bridge the gap between the international negotiations, what happens at the international platform versus how at home every young person can step up and take the lead in fighting this climate crisis. So I think it's open for what your interest is, what your passion is, whether if you like technology, you could think of a technology to help meet a local issue, an environmental issue in your community. It could be waste, it could be water, it could be air pollution, it could be anything. So I think, try and merge your passion with this, because this is such a big field, it's so interconnecting, and because it is so cross-cutting, you can't really, there's no like one solution that is going to help solve it, and there's no like one right way to fight climate change. And this is the best part of it, which is why we need all voices, all hands on deck, because the more we have together, the more resources we can share, the more knowledge we can share, the more experiences we share, we learn, and we can actually, amplify and make our work a lot more faster and better. So, find your passion, whether if your passion is writing, you can write about the climate crisis, you can write about local issues, you can bring, international issues to the local arena versus bring out, let the world hear about what's happening back in your backyard, back in your home. Because a lot of times, we hear about the big news, we hear about the most flashy news articles, but we don't necessarily hear about what's happening back on ground. So if you like writing, if you're a journalist, ensure that, you communicate things in a much better way. And similarly, whatever, you could be an architect, you could be a lawyer, but as long as you want to, work within this field of environment, I think it's open. So just find your passion and ensure that you channel it in the right way. So I think that's it.
Thank you. I'm just too excited. It's just a lot of information, but we will have the call of synthesis, don't worry. And I want to give the word to Mr. Axell also to answer this question, please.
Okay. Talk about climate action for me is something very personal because I grew up in an old city in the Sudas of Mexico. We have one of the most bigger refineries in the country. So every time I take a look of my window, I can see three big flames burning some gas and degrading the environment with this gas. So people here in my city really normalize how the hydrocarbon industry are destroying all the environment and all the biodiversity around here. So that's why it's really personal for me, because I think I live in a place in which all the people just ignore them and ignore this big problem. And I really have to do something around this. So I think it's one of the most important things that inspire me to do climate action and to work with more young people. For example, here I have like a group of friends who they are really help me to like make more research around the secondary effects of the use of hydrocarbons here in my city. They really help me to understand how the oil company really works inside the refinery, because I have different friends inside the refinery that they are working inside, and they know how is happening, all the different process inside the refinery. So they didn't know anything about climate. They don't have like an engineering, or they don't have like a science diploma. But I think the best way to involve people on this is just inform them, inspire them, and make some union around this type of issues. Because if more people can know what is the secondary effects of use this type of energies, or the secondary effects of the climate change, maybe they will be more conscious about how they can do, or how they can feel around these issues. So I think this conversation around SDGs and how we can front the new normality, it's very important, because right now we are living a moment in which we can change everything, and we can change the roots of where we are literally sit down. And I think it's very important to talk about this with more young people around the world, and start to change more ideas to change more experience around this and try to make more globalization and make more impact around the world. So I think it's something that we cannot just ignore them. So thank you for the speech and thank you for the information too.
Dear Nisreen, can you go? Yeah, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Okay. So as my final closing remarks, I will just say that climate change doesn't segregate between developed or developing countries, doesn't segregate between north or south. Whenever we have a catastrophe or an issue because of the climate change, then it will hit all of us. And I would like to send a message for all the policymakers and the decision makers in different countries. Please listen to the youth. We are the future, and whatever climate change will do, it will do for us. And we are aware enough, we have enough skills, we have enough capacities to actually take the responsibilities and do more than just marching and striking for climate. We have the future and we can make it better for us and for you and for the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you. I do appreciate also the comments, the insights, and the perspectives from our speakers. So we have certain comments also in the chat. I will ask you to please answer them and keep the interaction with the participants. And because due to time, we will go to our session number 3, which is called Next Steps. So in this session, I will call basically to start the synthesis and the call for action, Mr. Alex Wong, which is the founder of Youth Think Center. And he is the founder and Secretary General of Youth Think Center in China, one of the leading Chinese youth think and do tanks, which aims to build an environment to support young leaders to learn, advocate, and take actions on various topics, such as sustainable development goals. So please, Mr. Alex, go ahead.
Hello, hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry that I cannot open the camera because connection issue, but I definitely would very happy to join the event. And also I learned that today is a World Youth Skills Day. And so it's so great that you guys all have this very important event. And I was listening to the speakers from different countries to share their experience, their views on how young people engage with climate actions, how we can better contribute to the achieving sustainable development goals. And also there's different projects during the pandemic period. And I was thinking, because while listening other speakers and reading the event posts, I was also listening what should I see if we want to you know, like conclude events, and then we can plan for the next step. I was thinking that, you know, like for other participants we have today, online here or watching online, online in Facebook, in YouTube, is definitely actually very active on this topic. But we have such a large number that there's many young people. There's from different parts of the world, from cities, from villages, from north and south. Actually, they're not really following what all this kind of new world. So I think the first thing what we should do is that we should always try to advocate and to make sure that everyone understand the climate crisis and also the importance of sustainable development goals. We should always get the people outside the room, outside this meeting, this virtual meeting room, to get understand how important their engagement are. And how important everyone, for everyone to understand and to make sure everyone is not left behind. So I think this is the first message, that for everyone of us, and definitely we should do it together. Number two message is that I was thinking that there's a book, right, by 2006 Nobel Peace Laureate Professor Yunus. He was talking about the future of the world. There's a very inspiring quotation said by him, is that the scientists have, we have the science fiction, and then the scientists believe on it, and then they work very hard, and then we make it happen. This is the story of AI, 5G, all these high techs. It's like a few decades ago, it's definitely under science fiction. So for us, for all the young peoples, all the colleagues working on the building a better future, we ever see that we want to build a better world. We want to build a more sustainable planet. We actually are creating a social fiction, which is we need to make sure that everyone believes in it, and then we have this kind of social fiction, and then we can make it. So Professor Yunus in his book said that this is his social fiction called The World of Three Zeros. Is there's in the future world, it will be a zero poverty, zero unemployment, and zero carbon emission, zero carbon emission. So I think we should think about that. So we should have our vision for the future, and then we should believe this social fiction, and then we come back and check the solutions, and we want to make sure we can make it. And also, like the third point, I will mention that if we want to build a new world, a new destination, we should have new paths. If you look at the current business, the world system, like we always found there's many ridiculous problems that we are facing. Like the rich people become richer, the poor people become poor. All the resources go to the top, so the gap between poor and rich are becoming bigger and bigger. This is happening in all the countries, no matter what your country system is. This is happening in all around the world. And even now, we are facing this COVID-19 pandemic. And so we can see that we are facing a global problem together, but even now, we are having, this is one of the biggest crises we all face, right? And so people are starting to worry about the vaccine, the new vaccines, all these medicines developed by all these rich developed countries. Many developing countries are worrying about the poor people cannot pay for that. And so we are worrying about many different issues. This is what we call inequality, right? So there's the reason why we have the Black Lives Matters, all these campaigns, and also climate justice, all these different campaigns, gender equality. We want justice wars. We want justice for everyone. We want equality for everyone. And if we don't have all these rights, we cannot have a sustainable future. So we saw that there's Professor Yunus leading 100 Nobel laureates are calling for declare COVID-19 vaccine a global common good now. So if you haven't checked, you can Google it and sign it. It sounds that it promotes that the vaccine should be free for everyone to make sure that poor people can buy it. So we should, this is the time, the pandemic is a time for us, for everyone here, and also all the young peoples, all the young friends all around the world to think about our past, to reflect that what we have, like what's the current system, how we can, it's not restart, we should rebuild. We should have definitely we should have a new system. We should create a new one. This new one is the world we want, the future we want, is social fiction we want to create. We cannot go back to the old world. We should create the new one. So we should reflect that how we can do that. There are a few things. Number one, we definitely have a vision, we believe it. Number two, we bring more believers. We share all this vision and advocate for that, so everyone pay attention. Number three is that we should think about the tours. So a few years ago in the UN General Assembly, there's a few governments launched a global committee on social business for sustainable goals. So what they were saying is that what they are promoting is that there are three things very important for us to achieve sustainable goals. Number one, the methodology of social business. Like the social business is we are using the business model solving social problems, but we don't share the profit, but we target social problems. Number two is that the make best use of fast changing technologies. So we make sure that we're using the technology not only for entertainment, but we're using the AI, the blockchain for solving the problem, for solving the environmental crisis, others. The last but not least, we should unleash the power of young people. So like our generation or the current youth generation have the most tremendous technology power. I mean, compared to the sons in the past 1,000 years, we have the most advanced technology. We have the different models, methodology. We definitely should believe in that we can do it. I think this is why this is so important. Why it's so important we have this event today on this World Youth Skills Day, that we bring colleagues and friends from different part of the world, and we believe in that like through the youth cooperation we can do something better than before. So I want to congratulate the success of this online event, and thanks for all the speakers, and thanks for having me here. And I'm definitely looking forward to joining with everyone, and we should work together and stronger for achieving SDGs. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. So in order to continue also the synthesis and call for action, I welcome Dr. Roman Shukov. He is graduated with a master's degree from St. Petersburg State University. He holds a PhD degree in political science and has a number of scientific publications on institutionalization of G7, G20, and BRICS. Currently, he's the founder of Friends for Leadership, an international or a horizontal platform that scales youth-led working solutions for the Sustainable Development Agenda. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm enormously thankful to organizers, as this is a great honor to be here, and all the interventions before were really insightful, and I believe that we should build upon and really synthesize it in one document to let all the ideas go further, because there are many solutions and many ideas which definitely deserve attention. I'm really also interested in the things which were mentioned by the previous speaker, Alex, my friend from China. And I know that all of us many years are communicating with each other on this global platform offline and now more online, to actually start moving in some direction and start building this mechanism for global interaction on actually achieving the SDGs, because we have only 10 years left. and it's high time we started some coordinated activities. I can just quote today's tweet by head of UN Habitat, Maimouna Mokhtarif, who says that 16% of the global population are youth. And if we empower them with transferable skills, this will allow them to thrive and accept a rapidly changing world. I couldn't agree more with this tweet, and we are actually trying in Friends for Leadership to accumulate the best practices and working solutions from local to global level, to not only gather them, but encourage to share as a franchise their social projects, easy to implement elsewhere where these solutions are mostly required right now. Because I would like to one more time draw attention of all the speakers and those who watch us that new normal requires us to be more flexible. New normal requires that we really support each other. Solidarity is not just a word, it's our new reality. We cannot think in terms of confrontation and conflicts. We should think about win-win, about cooperation, and about those people who suffer the most because of the current crisis. So our number one priority right now should be to get rid of the consequences of the COVID-19 and related illnesses for our planet and for the whole population, including, of course, young people who need to receive the support now, who need to understand that they are not left behind, if we speak in the UN language. And we need to give a chance and opportunity to all global citizens to live a decent life with dignity. So hopefully all those who spoke today and those who watched us will reconsider what they are doing and try to, let's say, lead it in a more added value way, so that all the solutions you are currently investing so much energy and time in, they are not just like on the paper, they're not just on our social media, which is also important for a kickstart, but I really call upon everyone to share your knowledge, share your best practices, share the solutions, learn from others, and take the new innovative solutions from others. So once again, in Friends for Leadership, we are opening our doors for everyone who is interested. Everything is very transparent. You can always apply with your project on the website. So we are not the unique platform to do it, but at least we try. So you can please join us, or also continue the activities on your own. But I believe that we should constantly update the United Nations and its relevant agencies on the work which we are doing on the ground. Otherwise, no one will know of what we are doing. And we should better coordinate and don't only think of our current situation, but we should strategize and think how our current actions will influence the communities in 5 years or in 10 years when SDGs are scheduled to actually be implemented and be achieved. So by opening this decade of actions with the COVID-19 global pandemic, our planet gives us maybe the last chance to think about environment, to think about poor people, to think about young people. So let's focus, let's concentrate our efforts and just join our efforts and work together. Thank you very much. And maybe if you still did not draw your attention to UN 75 process, it's also high time you did it. You know that if you go to un75.online, there is a survey, one minute survey designed by the United Nations, where you can express your feelings, express your thoughts, actually estimate what are the main risks for our planet, and do you think that more cooperation is required on this stage? So please do it, because as far as I know, more than 300,000 people already expressed their views, but in the terms of global population, I still believe it's not sufficient. So if all of us will share this link to the communities, the United Nations will have a more detailed feedback, so that all our ideas and concerns are included. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And thanks again to organizers for this brilliant discussion.
Thank you very much for your words and participation. Also now for the vote of thanks and closing remarks, I welcome Mr. Joshua Amponzem. Joshua is an environmental and climate activist, the founder of Green Africa Youth Organization, a gender-balanced youth-led organization, which serves as a capacity building and advocacy anchor for environmental sustainability in Ghana. And basically his work aims to enhance the meaningful inclusion of youth and children in the local and global development processes. So Josh, please go ahead.
Hello everyone, happy to be here and thanks a lot to, first of all, to all the speakers for your excellent remarks and meaningful input towards the conversation on SDGs and youth engagement. I will use this chance to highlight a few things that were mentioned by some speakers, which I find them very, very striking. Fatou did mention about youth and ministerial engagement, which I think is very, very vital. And we should all strive for that we'll be able to work with the national entities in the work we do and not working sort of separately from them. Nisreen heavily mentioned this energy that we just do what we really want to do and not really sit and wait because we really don't have the time. So the time is an important matter when it comes to climate change, and we should do the best we can when we can and when we have the strength to. The third point I would pick from Heeta on education as being very, very important. If we do not understand what climate action is and what climate change is, we cannot really contribute to the quest in demanding for climate action and also contributing to climate action. So that is very, very important, and we should all pay attention to that. And I will also highlight the work of Axell with student energy, mobilization, and also linking to what Fatou said of working together to share best practices. This is very, very important. And lastly, Alex, thanks a lot for bringing in the concept of social fiction, which I find very, very striking, that we need to create the future we want to see. We need to have a vision of it and drive and build a momentum towards that. My personal take on that is that the momentum is building. Heeta stressed on it based on her experience internationally and locally, that young people are taking the space. But the future necessarily is not really defined yet. And I'll be very keen on how in our respective works locally and also internationally, how do we define how our future look like, how we want the future to look like, and make it very precise and very concrete, that we can work with stakeholders towards that, and not generally saying that, oh, we want climate action or we want meaningful youth engagement, without pinning it down to exactly what we are asking for and what that could look like. So thanks a lot everyone for this. And I will say that a big thank you to YFeed for putting this together. This is my third time joining webinars from YFeed, and it's always amazing and very meaningful, as well as very educative. So thanks to organizers, thanks to all our speakers, and thanks to everyone who joined. And we look forward to engaging with you in other spaces. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Josh. And well, we are right now closing our event, but before closing, I want to basically thank some of the organizations and the organizations who co-organize this virtual event. So we have Clean Earth Gambia, Climate Influencers Mexico, Climate Talk Nigeria, Colectivo Ecologista Jalisco, Mexico, Green Africa Youth Organization, Ghana, Latin American Youth Energy Circle, Mexico, Everest Leo Club of Everest Centennial District 44, in the USA, Lions Club International, Everest Centennial District 44H, USA, Sudan Youth Organization on Climate Change, Sudan, and The Country Needs Us in Nepal. I want to say thank you, gracias, shukran, shukriya, sheshe, spasibo. Aguille, to all of you for your time, for your availability. It was an amazing event, and please actually stay tuned, because more of these webinars will come. There are more conversation, but also more action. And as we know, climate action can stop. And I hope these webinars also become into a platform for us to not just network, but learn from other amazing leaders and youth worldwide. Thank you very much. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye.